At 13 years old, Musashi should not have won his first death match against a grown samurai. He was small, thin, an orphan with no master, no formal training, and no reputation to protect him. In a time when grown men trained their entire lives just to survive a single sword fight, Musashi stepped onto the dirt facing a fully trained adult samurai. This man had years of experience, real battles, real blood on his blade. Musashi had none of that. And yet, when the duel ended, the man lay dead. No tricks, no secret weapon, no sudden burst of strength, just a boy standing still. Historians struggle with this moment because it breaks every rule. Strength didn't decide it. Speed didn't decide it. Even skill, at least in the way we usually understand skill, wasn't the deciding factor. Something else was at work. Musashi didn't win because he was stronger. He didn't win because he was faster. He didn't win because he was lucky. He won because, while the grown man was drowning in fear, anger, and anticipation, the boy's mind was quiet. That silence decided everything. Most people hear this story and turn Musashi into a myth, a prodigy, a once-in-a-generation genius, something unreachable, something convenient to admire and then dismiss. But that explanation is lazy, because if this was talent, it would have shown up once and vanished. Instead, Musashi went on to fight more than 60 duels, and never lost a single one. That means what happened at 13 wasn't an accident. It was a system, a discipline so deep that it allowed a child to stand calmly in front of death while grown warriors collapsed under the weight of their own thoughts. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The real battle that day wasn't between two swords. It was between two minds. One mind obeyed fear. The other did not. This raises a question most people avoid because it's dangerous to their excuses. If a 13-year-old orphan could train his mind to stay still in the face of death, why do grown adults today struggle to stay disciplined for 30 minutes? What did Musashi understand that we don't? And more importantly, is that discipline something you can learn? Because if it is, then the problem has never been motivation, talent, or strength. It has always been the mind. And that is where this story truly begins. Most people think they lack discipline. They say they need more motivation, better habits, a stronger routine. They blame distractions, busy schedules, or a lack of willpower. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is resistance. Not resistance to hard work, but resistance inside the mind. You don't fail because you can't act. You fail because your mind argues before you ever move. It negotiates. It delays. It creates reasons to wait until tomorrow. You tell yourself you'll start when you feel ready, when you have more energy, when life calms down. And somehow, that moment never comes. This isn't because you're weak. It's because your mind has learned a habit of avoiding discomfort. It protects you by keeping you still. Now compare that to Musashi. At 13, he didn't feel confident. He didn't feel prepared. He didn't feel fearless. He felt fear just like anyone else would standing in front of a blade. The difference wasn't the absence of fear. It was the absence of negotiation. Musashi didn't ask himself if he was ready. He didn't wait for courage to arrive. He didn't debate whether this was the right moment. He acted because action was required. Modern life gives you the opposite conditions. No immediate danger, no forced decision, no blade at your throat. So your mind fills the space with noise. It tells you to check your phone, to rest first, to plan more, to consume instead of create. And because nothing forces you to choose, you drift. That's the illusion. You think discipline is about pushing harder, about forcing yourself through pain, about becoming someone you're not. But discipline isn't force. It's the ability to act without listening to the voice that begs you to stop. Musashi didn't defeat an opponent that day. He defeated hesitation. And that's the same opponent standing in front of you now. Not your job, not your past, not your circumstances. Just the voice in your head that keeps asking for comfort before commitment. If you can't sit still for 10 minutes without reaching for distraction, if you can't start without feeling ready, if you need the perfect conditions before you move, then the problem isn't discipline. It's that your mind has never been trained to obey. And Musashi learned that lesson early, not after victory, but in the moments when fear first showed its face. That's where his real training began. Before Miyamoto Musashi ever faced a samurai, he ran from something much smaller. One day, while walking alone, a dog charged at him. It wasn't large. It wasn't trained. It wasn't even meant to kill him. And yet, Musashi turned and ran. His legs moved before his mind could catch up. His heart raced. His breath broke apart. He didn't stop running until he was far away and safe. Only then did the shame arrive. He stood there, alone, realizing what had just happened. Not the running, but how easily fear had taken control. How quickly his body had obeyed panic without question. The dog didn't defeat him. His reaction did. Musashi understood something in that moment that most people never face directly. His body wasn't weak. His mind was. He had strength. He had health. He had youth. But none of that mattered when fear spoke first. That realization stayed with him. Because if fear could control him in front of a dog, what would happen in front of a blade? This wasn't a comforting thought. It wasn't inspiring. It was heavy. It meant the problem wasn't outside him. It was inside. And that made it harder to escape. Musashi didn't excuse it. He didn't blame bad luck or surprise. He didn't pretend it didn't matter. He watched himself honestly. He saw how fear entered, how his thoughts collapsed, how his body reacted without permission. And for the first time, he understood that muscles wouldn't fix this. More training wouldn't fix this. Only mastery of the mind would. That moment became a quiet turning point. Not dramatic, not heroic, just clear. Fear wasn't something to destroy. It was something to observe. Because fear itself wasn't the enemy. The problem was how quickly he obeyed it. Most people spend their lives running from that realization. They distract themselves. They stay busy. They avoid moments that reveal their weakness. Musashi didn't. He stayed with the discomfort. He replayed it. He studied it. He asked a simple question that changed everything. What moved first, my body or my mind? And once he saw the answer, he couldn't unsee it. If his mind could command retreat without thought, then it could also command stillness, focus, action, but only if it was trained. The fear he felt that day didn't disappear. It became fuel for a different kind of strength, one that didn't rely on speed or power, one that didn't panic when danger appeared. That day, Musashi didn't promise to become fearless. He decided something far more important. He decided that fear would no longer decide for him. And that decision marked the true beginning of his path. Musashi did not start by lifting heavier weapons or practicing faster strikes. He began by sitting still. Each day, he chose a quiet place and lowered himself to the ground. No blade, no movement, just his body and his breath. He closed his eyes and waited. At first, the fear returned immediately. His chest tightened. His thoughts raced. His legs wanted to move. Every part of him pushed for escape, even though there was nothing to run from. He did nothing. He watched his breath rise and fall. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow, steady, uneven at first, then smoother with time. The goal wasn't calm. It was obedience. When fear spoke, he didn't fight it. When his mind screamed to move, he didn't argue. He stayed. The first day, he lasted only a few minutes before his body broke focus. The second day, a little longer. By the third day, the fear still came, but it didn't control him as quickly. By the fifth day, his breath stopped shaking when the tension appeared. By the seventh day, something changed. The fear was still there, but it felt distant, like noise in the background instead of a command. Musashi learned that fear loses power when it isn't obeyed. He learned that the body waits for instruction, and when the mind stays clear, the body follows. This wasn't about comfort. Sitting still was uncomfortable, painful at times. His legs burned, his back ached. His thoughts tried every trick to pull him away. But each time he stayed, the mind grew quieter. Not empty, obedient. 7 days was all it took to see the truth. Fear does not disappear. It fades when it is watched. Stillness is not weakness. It is control. By the end of the week, Musashi hadn't become brave. He had become steady, and steadiness is what fear cannot break. When he finally stood up on the 7th day, the world looked the same. But he wasn't, because soon his training would face something it couldn't ignore. A real opponent, a real blade, a real test. And this time, fear would not be allowed to speak first. When the day of the duel arrived, Musashi did not feel confident. He felt clear. The man standing across from him was older, larger, and trained. His grip was tight. His stance was sharp. His eyes burned with intent. Musashi noticed all of it, but he did not react. He stood where he was, breathing slowly, letting his weight settle. His hands did not shake. His thoughts did not race. The noise that once rushed his mind stayed quiet. The other man moved first. His strike came fast, driven by anger and urgency. Years of training pushed him forward, but so did fear. The fear of being challenged by a boy. Musashi saw it, not as danger, as information. He didn't rush. He didn't freeze. He waited until the strike committed, until there was no room to change direction. Then he stepped. One movement. Clean. Controlled. The duel ended almost as soon as it began. There was no celebration. No relief. Just stillness. The crowd saw a miracle. Musashi saw a result. He hadn't won by overpowering his opponent. He hadn't relied on speed or technique. He had simply stayed present while the other man collapsed under his own tension. Panic narrows vision. Fear rushes decisions. Anger wastes energy. Calm does the opposite. Musashi's training had done exactly what it was meant to do. His mind stayed steady long enough to see the opening that fear always creates. That was the proof. The system worked. Not because it removed fear, but because it placed fear in the background. Musashi understood then that this wasn't a one-time insight. It wasn't luck. It was a skill that could be practiced, sharpened, and deepened. Victory didn't make him arrogant. It made him precise. Because if this method worked once, it could work again. And if it could work again, it could be refined. The duel didn't mark the end of his training. It marked the beginning of a lifetime of discipline. A discipline that would soon grow harsher, quieter, and more demanding. Because the mind, once trained, demands constant attention. And Musashi was only getting started. After the duel, Musashi gave a name to what he was training. Shin no Tanin, the forging of the mind. This principle was simple, but unforgiving. The mind commands. The body obeys. Most people live in reverse. Their bodies decide first. Comfort leads. Fear leads. Desire leads. And the mind follows behind, explaining the choice after it's already been made. Musashi refused that order. He saw that rebellion didn't come from the body. It came from thoughts, from hesitation, from the voice that asks for relief before effort. So each day, he trained obedience. When his legs ached, he stayed. When hunger distracted him, he waited. When boredom pressed in, he did not escape. These weren't heroic acts. No one watched. No one praised him. But each moment of resistance was a chance to reinforce control. The goal was not punishment. The goal was alignment. A mind that gives clear commands. A body that responds without complaint. Musashi understood that discipline is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force. It repeats the same instruction until obedience becomes natural. This is where most people fail. They think discipline should feel powerful, motivating, exciting, but real discipline feels quiet and ordinary. It feels like choosing to act when no one is watching. It feels like finishing a task without emotion attached. Every day, Musashi faced the same internal fight. Not against enemies, against delay, against excuses, against the need to feel ready. The training wasn't about strength, it was about authority. If the mind hesitated, the body would rebel. If the mind stayed clear, the body followed. That was the law. And once that law was set, it didn't stop with stillness. Because a trained mind demands a trained body. Musashi didn't separate the two. Mental discipline came first, but physical training followed immediately. Not as punishment, as reinforcement. Because when the mind learns to command, the body must learn to carry out those commands under pressure. And that was the next stage of the path. Musashi did not wait for comfort to disappear. He used it. He placed himself in situations where the body would complain loudly. Cold mornings without shelter, long hours without food, extended stillness when every muscle begged to move. Each discomfort was deliberate. Cold taught him not to panic. When his skin burned and his breath shortened, he focused on slowing the breath. He learned that the body reacts first, but the mind can interrupt the response. Hunger taught him patience. The empty feeling pulled at his thoughts, making him restless and distracted. Instead of rushing to eat, he waited. He let the craving rise and fall on its own. Stillness taught him honesty. When there was nothing to do and nowhere to escape, his thoughts grew louder. Old fears returned. Doubt pressed in. He watched it all without reacting. This was the work. Discomfort strips away excuses. It removes distractions. It forces attention inward. Musashi wasn't trying to become numb. He was training choice. Each time his body demanded relief and he refused to obey immediately, authority shifted back to the mind. That shift was small, almost invisible, but repeated daily, it became permanent. Most people avoid discomfort because it feels like failure. Musashi saw it as instruction. Pain wasn't punishment, it was feedback. If the mind stayed clear under cold, hunger, and stillness, then it would stay clear under pressure. And pressure was coming. Swords, noise, opponents, fear. If discipline failed there, it failed everywhere. This kind of training doesn't look impressive. There are no crowds, no rewards, just quiet suffering that sharpens awareness. Over time, Musashi noticed something change. His body still felt pain, but it no longer controlled his actions. His reactions slowed. His choices became deliberate. The body stopped arguing. Obedience became normal. And once the body obeyed without complaint, another layer of training revealed itself. Because physical discomfort was only the surface. The deeper challenge was emotional. Fear, anger, pride. Those would require the same discipline, but at a higher cost. And Musashi was ready to face them next. After mastering physical obedience, Musashi stepped into the world to test his mind in public. He faced people who tried to provoke him. Merchants yelled insults, neighbors whispered doubts, and strangers sneered at his youth and status. Every word was meant to trigger emotion, to make him react. Before training, these moments would have sparked anger or panic. His body would tense, his hands would clench, his mind would race. But now he paused. He allowed the insults to enter his awareness but refused to act on them. The words bounced off his calm mind like stones on water. He felt the anger rise but did not give it power. He felt pride flicker but held it at bay. By remaining silent, Musashi demonstrated control that others could not understand. His restraint confused his adversaries. They expected chaos and received composure. This practice went beyond simple endurance. It was about choosing behavior over impulse, proving that the mind could govern itself even in public scrutiny. Each controlled response reinforced authority over his inner state. He was no longer reacting. He was observing, measuring, and acting only when necessary. What he learned here was critical. Discipline was not just about obedience to discomfort. It was also about mastering the mind's reactions to social pressure. Silence became a weapon. Observation became a shield. Emotional storms could no longer shake his focus. This mastery revealed the next step, shifting from moment-to-moment control to a permanent identity. The body obeyed. The mind obeyed. Now the self needed to obey, without exception. Transitioning from public control to identity-level discipline was the next challenge, and Musashi was prepared to forge it. Musashi eventually realized that discipline could not rely on effort alone. Effort fades. Identity remains. So he gave a name to the next stage of training. Say no Shirhai, the rule of identity. Most people say, I will try to be disciplined. Musashi removed the word try. He understood something simple and absolute. You do not act your way into a new identity. You live out the identity you already accept. Each morning, before movement or training, he set his identity clearly. Not with emotion, not with motivation, with statement. I am disciplined. I do not negotiate with hesitation. My mind gives orders. My body obeys. These were not hopes. They were rules. During the day, every action either matched that identity or violated it. There was no middle ground, no excuses, no special conditions. At night, he reviewed himself, not with guilt, not with pride, with accuracy. Where did I obey? Where did I hesitate? Where did I allow emotion to decide? This audit was quiet and honest. No punishment, just correction. Musashi understood that identity discipline removes debate. When you are something, action follows naturally. When you try to be something, action becomes optional. This is why most people fail. They wake up as one person and try to behave like another. That gap creates friction, resistance, exhaustion. Musashi closed the gap. Discipline was no longer something he practiced. It was something he was. Once identity was set, discipline became automatic. The mind no longer asked if it should act. It asked how. That shift changed everything. Because now, when combat arrived, there would be no hesitation to overcome. No courage to summon. No emotion to manage. Only execution. And identity, once forged, must be tested. Not in thought. Not in solitude. But against another blade. That test was coming. 2 years after his first duel, Musashi faced a new challenge. This opponent was not just skilled with the sword. He used words, insults, and mockery as weapons. Every comment was meant to trigger anger, doubt, or fear. A normal mind would react. Old Musashi might have snapped. But identity Musashi was different. He felt the anger rise. He noticed the tension in his body. And then he reminded himself, I am someone whose mind obeys. I do not let insult or fear dictate action. The words struck, but they could not penetrate. His mind was still observing. His body waited, calm and ready. The duel began. Every attack came with force and intent. Musashi's reactions were precise. His opponent, expecting chaos, found only control. Strike after strike, Musashi maintained perfect focus. His mind did not waver. Every movement flowed from identity, not from reaction. The duel ended quickly. Victory was certain. The psychological warfare had failed. Musashi had proven that identity discipline was stronger than skill alone. He didn't just control his body. He had mastered his mind. Emotion existed, but it no longer ruled. Anger appeared, desire arose, fear whispered, but none could force action. This battle confirmed a crucial truth. Discipline rooted in identity survives where willpower alone falters. The mind obeys naturally because it is trained to obey. Next, Musashi would take this further. He would discover how to maintain that discipline over years, not just moments. From single battles to a lifetime of mastery. By the time Musashi was 20, he had fought many duels. He noticed something troubling. On days without challenge, his discipline softened. The mind, like a muscle, lost strength when not exercised. He realized that victory in battle wasn't enough. To remain unstoppable, discipline had to be constant. Not just for duels, but for life itself. Musashi created the principle of Rinshu no Zoku, continuous practice. Discipline was no longer occasional effort, it became daily habit. Every day offered opportunities to train, whether or not danger appeared. He built non-negotiable routines. Cold water immersion each morning, hunger delays at midday, stillness exercises in the evening. None of these had a purpose beyond training the mind. The discomfort was the point. Each act reinforced obedience. Skipping a day meant regression. Musashi refused to allow regression. Science confirms this. Neuroscientists show that pathways in the brain strengthen through use and weaken through neglect. Self-control is no different. A mind trained daily stays sharp. A mind trained only when convenient grows weak and vulnerable. Musashi's 17 years of daily training kept him prepared. No duel, no test, no insult could unbalance him. Even exhausting challenges, like facing 3 top swordsmen in one day, could not break him. The first duel in the sequence was won calmly. The second, energy remained steady. The third, precision and focus persisted. Each victory was possible because the mind had been sharpened daily, without exception. The lesson was clear. Discipline is built through relentless, repeated practice. It is not summoned on demand. It is maintained through constant training. Next, Musashi would push his mind even further. He would find a way to eliminate effort itself. Discipline would become effortless, reactionless, natural. From endurance of practice to mastery of stillness. By the time Musashi was 30, he faced a challenge that would test everything he had built. He was to duel 3 elite swordsmen from the Yoshio school, all in a single day. Each opponent was strong, skilled, and ready to exploit any weakness. Most warriors would tire, mentally and physically, after one fight. Energy would fade, focus would slip, mistakes would appear. But Musashi had trained differently. His mind was conditioned to obey and endure, regardless of circumstance. The first duel was decisive. Musashi moved with precision. His breathing remained steady. No panic, no hesitation. The second duel began. Musashi's body could have faltered. His mind, however, stayed sharp. Every strike, every movement flowed exactly as he intended. By the third duel, even the most hardened observers expected fatigue to betray him. But his mind remained unshaken. His focus, his calm, his strategy were intact. Victory came again, clean and absolute. The difference was simple but profound: daily, relentless mental training. Years of microdiscipline had built endurance far beyond what casual effort could reach. Musashi's mind did not weaken because obedience was automatic. There was no rebellion to fight, no internal resistance to exhaust energy. This sequence proved something critical. Discipline is not temporary. It compounds. Each act of obedience, each moment of focus, builds strength for the next challenge. The mind, trained consistently, becomes an unbreakable resource. By the end of the day, all 3 duels were won. Observers marveled. How could a single man remain calm, precise, and unbeatable while facing 3 masters consecutively? The answer was the invisible work behind the duels. Decades of disciplined training. Musashi had built mental stamina far stronger than any single fight could test. His mind had become a reservoir of unshakable calm and control. The next step awaited. He would move beyond effortful discipline, beyond controlling reactions. He would discover a state where discipline required no command at all. Effortless mastery of the mind, the ultimate goal of his training. By age 35, Musashi had fought over 40 duels and trained his mind for decades. Yet he discovered a subtle limitation. Even with perfect obedience, there was still a small effort required. Every action demanded focus, every impulse still required control. He sought something deeper, a way for discipline to feel natural, effortless. not forcing the mind to obey, but creating a mind so calm that obedience happened automatically. During a meditation retreat, he found the answer, Kan, the stillness response. Stillness was different from control. He didn't push away thoughts or fight impulses. He simply observed them. Anger, desire, fear, all arose and passed like ripples on water. The mind remained anchored, unshaken by chaos around it. This stillness transformed discipline. No effort, no internal friction. Musashi could act decisively, even in danger, without consciously managing his emotions. Morning stillness became routine. 1 hour at dawn, sitting quietly, letting thoughts flow without engaging them. Throughout the day, he maintained inner calm during every activity, walking, eating, training. Every movement came from clarity, not reaction. Even when opponents insulted or provoked him, his mind remained untouched. External chaos was powerless against his calm. Insults passed through him like wind over still water. This was discipline perfected, effortless, natural, unstoppable. The mind no longer needed commands. It simply was still. Musashi had reached the ultimate stage. From fear to obedience, from identity to relentless practice, and finally, stillness. His mind had become a space of complete calm, capable of perfect action without effort. Next, his lifetime of training would show its full result. The legacy of a mind transformed. The proof of 60 duels, decades of practice, and ultimate mastery of self. By the time Musashi reached age 62, he had fought 60 duels without ever losing. He wasn't born special. He wasn't gifted with extraordinary talent. What made him unbeatable was 37 years of relentless training. Every morning, every day, every year, he trained his mind. Cold water, hunger, stillness, identity discipline, continuous practice. No exceptions. That training made his mind obedient, calm, and unstoppable. Not because he was born that way, but because he chose to train daily for decades. And here's the truth for you. Your mind isn't broken. It isn't weak. It's untrained. Every time you ignore your alarms, skip a workout, break a promise to yourself, or give in to impulse, you are training your mind to disobey. Years of rebellion, and now you wonder why discipline is impossible. It's not impossible. It's reversible. Training works both ways. 7 days of deliberate obedience shows you that your mind can listen. 30 days begins real transformation. 1 year integrates discipline into who you are. Most people won't start the 7 days. That's why most remain trapped by impulses, emotions, and discomfort. Not because they can't, but because they won't train. The choice is yours. Will you remain controlled by your mind, or will you train your mind to obey? The path is clear. Start today. Command your mind. Do the uncomfortable. Practice daily. Strengthen obedience. Develop stillness. Your transformation begins now. Musashi's life proves it. Your mind can become disciplined, calm, and unbreakable. The duel isn't against another person. It's against yourself. Will you act, or will you remain passive? The answer decides everything. 7 days to start, 30 days to feel different, 1 year to become unrecognizable. The path forward is yours. The question is, will you take it?